I'm Drew Breezy, and this is the Comm Center, the show that dissects 911 calls, emergency response video, and audio by two guys who have done both jobs. Coming up, we're going to have an update on Amanda Nenigar, the missing, now deceased California girl that we talked about in the last episode. We're going to cover a Fort Lauderdale mental health case at a hotel that turns into a shootout. I've never been a SWAT guy, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. And you've seen John's sketching prowess and general artistry, but wait until you see what he does with his bedazzler. All that and what it means for your weekend on the Comm Center.
City council members have announced their plan to disband the Minneapolis Police Department.
We're calling for defunding the police.
Shootings in New York City have more than doubled this year.
Wake up, America. It's the Comm Center with Drew Breezy, your favorite podcast. It's a TV show on the internet about two best friends who have to get outside their comfort zone to find an actual literal comfort zone, and they're surprised when they find it in Iraq. I'm John. I'm an actual 911 dispatcher for real. In the actual world, I'm a 911 dispatcher. I've been doing that for 9 years. I'm joined, as always, by my senior partner, Detective Lieutenant Andrew Baxter, formerly of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Bureau. Drew, happy Easter to you. Happy April Fool's Day.
Happy everything, man.
Happy everything. How have you been?
I've been great. How about you?
Terrible. Thank you for asking.
Good. Did something happen to the colors of my camera?
You got a little bit of Oompa Loompa going on over there. So, or the sun's rising or setting. But you guys got to remember, he's in Florida, the Sunshine State.
Yeah, that's true.
You work on it a little bit. We'll have Flapjack. So we just had Easter. Easter is typically not a very busy time for 911 agencies. However, I say that every single call we took was a domestic, or it seemed like it. Family members spending a long weekend together because many people had Monday off as well. People forced to be together. Sparks are going to fly. It happens every single week. In fact, there's a case. I was looking at possibly doing this for next week or in the coming weeks. But in Nashville, Tennessee, some people were getting together for an Easter brunch at a nice restaurant. And a couple people ended up getting shot. So that's what happens when you have Easter in Tennessee, is you go out for Easter brunch and people are getting shot there. It wasn't too bad of a weekend. We had some weather here that caused some issues, but all in all, it was good. What about you, Drew? Did you have a good Easter? Is that something you even celebrate?
Yeah, I'm trying to even think of what I did. I mean, I watched the Tampa Bay Rays game, just a quiet, relaxing weekend. We didn't have the kids, so they didn't get their Easter baskets until yesterday. But we just had a nice, quiet, Easter together. No hunts, no Easter egg hunts, nothing like that. And then the missus cooked a very nice dinner, made a very nice meal. And that's pretty much it. And now
we're all caught up in your life.
Yeah,
you can tell Drew doesn't even want to tell like pleasant elevator small talk anecdotes. It's just like, no. Drew, how was your weekend? Would you quit prying into my private life?
How about we mind our own business, John?
How about we mind it? I'll thank you to mind your own affairs.
I said good day.
I said good day, sir. I went to church. It was snowing when I got up, and I was almost like, I don't know if I want to drive through the snow to get to church. But that, if the Lord could get up out of his grave for me, there's really no excuse for me not to go to church on a Sunday, let alone Easter. So,
how was the music in this in church on Sunday?
It was always pretty good. Our worship leader likes to go to a lot of this contemporary nonsense that really fails to move me in the spirit. But then he'll bust out this like old classic, and I'm like, oh yeah, man. The old rugged cross and things like that, leaning on the everlasting arm, any kind of old hymn. All of a sudden, I am rocking out.
Like a swing low, sweet chariot with a disco beat, or something like that.
It was shocking. It's funny you mentioned Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. It's actually considered very unsavory for certain people to sing that song. And so I thought we would never really have that being played at our church. But at the last seconds, the lights fell and a full Baptist gospel choir entered the scene, and then we were
Right.
able to
From
sing that.
from the balcony.
Sing yes from the balcony. We were able
Yeah.
to sing that song, and it was fully appropriate. I also saw some articles over the weekend that people were worried that April Fool's Day was going to cause quite a bit of 911 traffic that was all going to be unfounded. Didn't have a single one in my agency. I guess I'm curious if you're a listener, if you're a 911 dispatcher, and you had to deal with prank calls on the rise on April Fool's Day. Reach out to us, send us those messages. You can email us at comcenterpodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach out to Drew at What Say Drew on Instagram. You can also reach me at Difficult to Look at Pictures if you have the time to type out that handle. We'd appreciate it. You can also call us. That's right, we still do have a phone number. That's 848-COM-911. That's 848-266-6911. You can reach out to us and leave a voicemail. The voicemails have been a little bit dry lately. And when I say dry, I don't mean like pithy. I mean like non-existent. The reason for that is that without consulting Drew, who is a majority shareholder of this show, I created what's called Comm Center Aftershow. What is Comm Center Aftershow? Well, I'll tell you what, of all the podcasts I do, it's the one that I don't do any preparation for whatsoever. Like last week, I wasn't even on time for it. You're invited. If you like listening to this podcast, check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube. It's just called the Comm Center. But every Thursday when the episode drops at 8/7 Central, whenever that episode is over, so it's not at a fixed time, the after show starts. What is that? Well, I just turn on the camera. I'm live streaming to the people who watch the show and to anyone else. And I'll take questions about 911 or stuff with me or anything anyone really wants to talk about. If you want to connect with me as the host of this podcast, you can do that. Now, Drew's dropped in before.
I have.
Kendra, Dewey usually will make an appearance. Our illustrious professor, like just last week, he told this fantastic story about meeting Will Smith in person. And I have to say, I've never been more jealous of a personal encounter. It's not even about Will Smith. It's just how the story played out. There's quite a few ironic twists and turns. And so if you want to interact with us live and in real time, you could do that. And I wanted to say a special thanks to Jenna, who called last week, because again, for the first time in the 15 months that we've been doing the show, so she wrote on the screen, and I thought this was so charming. She goes, "So you're a real 911 dispatcher, right?" And then she asked me real questions. And it was like, that's why I started doing this job well over a year ago, was to field questions like that. They were good questions. It was entertaining and informative to other people. I think sometimes there's a classroom effect when we're having the show, Drew, where no one wants to interrupt the lecture. No one wants to raise their hand and ask a stupid question and appear stupid to the whole world. Well, there's nothing more stupid than the after show. So you could just jump on there. You could be an intellectual giant and you can ask whatever questions you want. And it's just a great way to hang out with you as a fan. So whenever the show is over on Thursdays, jump into our after show. You can catch up with me and possibly other people live. And so I just encourage you to do that.
I look forward to it. John, the only stupid question is the one not asked.
I wish that were true, but you know what? Even on the after show, we will handle stupid questions. That's fine. And honestly, I would rather take the stupid questions and then have someone not be under, whatever it is that's confusing them. We could just resolve it, right? Because in truth, 911 operates inside this total cloak of not secrecy,
stupidity,
or ignorance, right? Nobody understands how 911 works. A lot of people have said to me, like, they don't want to dial 911 because if they're visiting from another state, it's going to go home to their home 911 wherever they're from. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way at all. Like, no. 911 wouldn't work if it was based on area code. And so that's a very common misconception, and we should maybe take it back down to basics of breaking down what 911 is and how it works and why.
So why don't we call it the after show Stupid Questions with John?
That's what it'll be this week. It'll be stupid questions only.
Yes, and I guess conceivably, if you have a very long cable from your residence to wherever you're vacationing, and you'd use your landline to call 911, it will ring back home.
Yeah, you would. Yeah,
1,300 miles of, however long away you are from home.
That's true. And then it's also true that every 911 trunk line does have a 10-digit phone number. So case in point, there's the phone number for a major university's psychology department. If you transpose 2 of those numbers, it rings my 911 phone in my office in the middle of the fucking moon where I live and work. So sometimes I'll answer the phone, 911, where's your emergency? And their GPS coordinates are like, 2,000 miles away. And I'm like, what is going on here? And they're like, knock it off, Carl. I'm like, I am literally 911. How about you? How about you?
My office, when I worked in the comm center where I was, my office, if you transpose, like, the prefix is 247, but if you dialed, or if you were looking to dial 274 in these last 4 digits of my extension, you were confused with the mayor's office. So I would get calls on my voicemail constantly about complaints that were supposed to be handled by the mayor, or I would answer calls during the day, and sometimes I just didn't want to put up with it, but other times I just let those people vent. So, like, they thought that they were talking, to somebody in the mayor's office, and then, like, I would let them vent for a good 6-7 minutes, get it off their chest. I would try to answer some of their questions, and then I would go, by the way, if you're trying to get a hold of the mayor's office, you should dial this number because you dialed, my number.
You're a consummate public servant. I would just say, sounds like a city problem to me, and I'm county, baby.
No, I had too much fun with it. So,
that must be nice as a lieutenant to be able to have time to sit around and have fun.
Oh yeah, I would never deny a citizen. I don't want to make ill will between my office and the city of Tampa, but
it's not about necessarily denying them service. It's about serving them more directly. Like you said, you took care of the emotional component, but it's like if they have an issue, a city issue that needs resolving, like there's ultimately nothing you could do about that.
I can tell you my first rule of handling citizen complaints was just let them talk for, like, barely say anything for the first 7 or 8 minutes, because once they just puke everything out, you can talk. You could probably get a lot more out. They're drained already, and you can get a lot more out. They just want to be heard, really. Like, and you could definitely massage the problem, or you can fix whatever needs to be fixed, or at least assure them that you're looking into it or whatever. But if you just let them, in 911 world, you don't have that luxury. I get that. Like, in 911 world, it's the opposite. You have to drag it out of them very quickly and make decisions, which, I've been following these stupid 911 pages on Instagram and such. And, people are like, it's almost like it's fashionable to play 911 calls and not give any context, or, like, kind of, at least we're giving context to it, or explaining what the job of the operator is, or they're not doing any of that. And people just pile on to the dispatchers in the comments of those things. So I've been recently getting on there and just answering them under the comm center moniker.
What a fantastic way to ruin your life.
Yeah, and ruin my day. I always do. I always ruin my day. I had a nice back and forth with somebody yesterday. But that's how we educate also. We get in these comments and we kind of say, hey, look, if only there was a show about this.
Yeah. I once got into it on that call from Sparks, Nevada, where the guy's got a chainsaw in the motel lobby. Everybody was really harsh on that one dispatcher for saying, does he have a mental illness or whatever? And so I made the mistake of jumping in there and kind of addressing some of these things. And then a lot of people started getting on me that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I tried to explain, like, I kind of do a little bit, no. I mean, I do it 40 hours a week, whereas you just kind of came across this browsing through the internet. And then finally, I'm getting into it with someone whose aunt once wrote a policy at APCO or something, and he's explaining that his aunt would be ashamed of me, and his aunt never had a bad day as an 911 dispatcher, and she enjoyed her job. And if I'm stressed out by it, or if I feel anything because of a 911 call, it's because I'm bad at my job. And I don't have the mentality to get into those comment sections because I've got a big mouth on me. I can never let stupidity go unchecked whenever I encounter it. And so, I have to just stay out of those things in general. I guess this is what I'm doing to resolve 911 ignorance out there, is by being on the show. But it's funny.
it's all about last word for me. One, just like I'm doing here now, and it's also it's also about because I can. Like there are years that I could not, so now I can answer them, and I can be a smart ass, and I can, you know, I don't want to give you the example. We should cover not wacky 911 calls, but wacky posts of 911 calls. We'll do a whole show about that one day.
We should. Speaking of wacky posts of 911 and also being irritated to your core, I wanted to cover a 911 call from Vanderbilt, the university. They recently had a protest there where a bunch of entitled, whiny children who don't understand even one thing about life, they don't. They barricaded themselves inside a building for 24 hours. They complained about not having water. At the end of it, this big dumpy kid comes out, and I guess I don't want to make fun of his looks, but you know, he's a loser, I guess. Sorry, but he wants an official apology from Vanderbilt because of the way they were treated, because they were in a building, they were denied access to friends and water and all this. And he goes, I had a better time in jail. I was able to rest there. I was able to drink water and see my friends and all this. And it's just like, first of all, you put yourself in that situation. You refused to leave. I believe you were arrested for trespassing. The situation that you're in was not bad at all. Like for 24 hours, you think you were suffering. The idea that you think you can even reach the point of suffering in 24 hours says that there's something seriously wrong with you as a person, because there's really nothing that can happen to you in the course of a day that's going to constitute genuine suffering. Yeah, you're going to get tired, you're going to get thirsty, but Vanderbilt didn't do anything to you. But to just get to the call, the students made me very mad. What's happening here is I'm going to play some 911 audio for you, and this is going to sound different than any other 911 audio that I've ever played for you before. The reason for that is that the 911 call you're about to hear is not the audio that was captured by the PSAP, the Public Safety Access Point. What this is someone who's outside the protest, the lock-in, whatever you want to call it, is attempting to throw gasoline on the situation, cause problems. They have a female friend who's inside the lock-in, and this person wants to dial 911 for them on their behalf. So what's happening? Why does this sound this way? Because you have two people in this call. One of them dials 911, explains the chief complaint of an emergency happening at the protest. The second person is getting this on their social media so that they can post it to social media, because they know that the response for their claim of an emergency is going to be lacking. And this is their way that they're going to say that the system is failing them. The system doesn't. There's violence inherent in the system, Drew. I'm going to go ahead and play that 911 call if you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Also, just a quick, don't be thrown by the disgusting substance of what they're talking about in the 911 call. Just try to listen all the way through to the end.
There's currently a female student who is being denied the right to change her tampon that has been in for multiple hours, which leads to an increased risk of toxic shock syndrome. So while you're saying...
I'm a female, I understand.
Right, so then you should understand... Okay, what you are not hearing is that if she stands up to use the restroom to change her tampon, they are threatening arrest. So it is not an option for her.
Ma'am, you have an emergency.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
That is an emergency.
No, do you have an emergency? Not your friend that's inside. Do you have an emergency?
That is my emergency.
I don't remember the time that I needed to have an emergency personally to call 911 for help.
I'm sorry, what?
I don't remember a time when it has to be a personal emergency for me to call 911 for help. I am requesting assistance, medical urgent assistance.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
That oh man was not us.
No.
So first of all, okay, like, so the girl on the inside is like texting her friend on the outside, and she's like, you got to concoct something, because if I stand up, they're going to arrest me and I can't go to jail, because if I go to jail, then I can't, my dad's not going to, pay my allowance.
First of all, arrest is always an option. And we kind of just breeze past that. There seems to be an actual idea that like people should not submit to an arrest. So if you're protesting something, let's just say you're protesting something legitimate. Like, let's not just say that like you're complaining about your personal hygiene problems because you're endorsing, a terrorist state that picked a war with Israel and is getting some comeuppance, and you don't like that, and you don't like your tax dollars going to support Israel, whatever. Let's just say it's actually some legitimate protest. Let's say it's even like, you're in a protest because you don't want these trees cut down, which I'm not even an environmentalist, but if you want to save the tree, whatever, change yourself to a tree. If you're in danger of a serious medical condition, you should just get arrested to save your life. Or you're willing to say, I'm willing to die of whatever it is that's going to take me down in order to save these trees. You can't have it both ways, because what's going to happen? What is this person actually asking for? They want an ambulance to intervene on behalf of a third party whose symptoms we're not even aware of. We're not aware that she has toxic shock syndrome.
No,
if that person's experienced symptoms of toxic shock syndrome, it's time to send an ambulance. If that person's in increased danger, and again, this is a completely ginned up non-emergency, that they're like, well, our friend's inside and she's saying that, she's having a difficult time because it's, female troubles. And then they want to turn this into an emergency. What's the ambulance supposed to do? These people have locked themselves inside. They're refusing to come out. Is an ambulance supposed to breach the door, go in there and grab her by the hair and take her to the hospital because she's at an increased risk of toxic shock syndrome? But let's push past all this, because it's not at any point is this reasonable. It's completely made up. You can actually tell when the caller is calling. She goes, she is at increased risk for toxic shock syndrome. And it's almost like, she's reading side effects off of a pill. You may experience vomiting, diarrhea, indigestion. It's completely made up. They're calling 911 for the sole purpose of bullying 911, for the sole purpose of trying to make 911 look bad, for the sole purpose of bogging it down. And real emergencies and real problems are happening in and around Vanderbilt, not the least of which is actually the real protest, where you have a bunch of entitled kids locking themselves inside, believing that they're doing anything to influence international politics when they are not. They're making themselves feel good. They're making themselves feel activated politically. And other things are going on. That 911 dispatcher probably just got done dealing with a car accident, perhaps with injuries, maybe something going on with a baby, maybe a shooting, maybe a stabbing, some other actual crime, and they've got to stop what they're doing to take a 911 call from an entitled teenager who wants to make them look bad. Because again, why did the audio quality sound the way it did? It's because it was just to demonstrate that the police were not being cooperative, or the 911 was not being cooperative with a medical emergency, because they knew that nothing would be sent. And I'll say this finally, you don't need to have a personal emergency to dial 911, but there does need to be an emergency, because being at the increased risk of something is really not an emergency. We can't deal with the potential outcomes and future crimes and things like that. And if the person you're calling for is an adult and she has access to a phone, and she's able to use it, then the call should come from her. The end.
Yeah. She wasn't even claiming she needed an ambulance. She was like, you don't understand. If she stands up to go to the bathroom, she's going to be arrested.
Yeah. And that's not an option for her.
Yeah. Like, okay. One, and two, how about she reason with the people that are going to arrest her? Why does she need you to call 911 to reason with unreasonable shit, by the way? I mean, basically she's saying, like, I'm sitting here in my chair, John, and that's, my legs sitting for a long period of time could cause atrophy in my legs. So should I call 911 and have them make me stand up, allow me to stand up? If you know what I mean? Like, it's just, this is dumb. That's probably the dumbest thing I have ever heard, or the dumbest thing in a while to come out of a university. And by the way, like, we make our choices. Like, if you want to go protest whatever, it's my guess, if we just handed everybody a pen and a piece of paper and told them to write 2 paragraphs about what they were protesting, you're not going to get a correct answer.
No. Well, case in point about the mass ignorance, they claim that Israel is occupying Palestine when Israel vacated the Gaza Strip something like 10 years ago or something. So
yes. They have an AOC on Margaret Hoover's program level of understanding of the Gulf. Do you remember that, when she was like a budding candidate? And is that her name, Margaret Hoover? She's a descendant of one of the presidents, but at any rate, she works for PBS and she has firing line now. And she had this little discussion with AOC, and she asked her, like, you know, what should we do about the occupation? And it was just like, like, I'm against it.
Well, what do you mean? She should have said, well, how do you feel about it?
Right. Like,
because I feel the same as you.
You know, you're against and well, like, they shouldn't, you know, that was awesome is basically what she said. And that's how these kids are. And they're using 911 now to exact their, you know, like, don't be nasty. Don't be a nasty little snot because your friend wants to escape arrest, put herself in a position to be arrested, and now she wants to escape arrest. Because let me tell you this. It's, I get that there are female hygiene issues. There are also race issues, right? And when you go to a call in certain parts of town, the first thing they do is start yelling at you their racial problems and project that on you because it makes you most uncomfortable.
Makes you
and
defensive.
They know, right? And they know as a white male, I'm like, ooh, I can't make an arrest here because this is a black female and she's yelling about being a black female. This is the same thing. Like, ooh, periods and stuff. Like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't want to arrest somebody for having a period. I mean, do you think she caught a 48-hour toxic shock syndrome? You know, like, should we get her an ambulance and a surgeon immediately? That's not going to make me uncomfortable. In fact, I probably would bust the door open and say, okay, which one of you had your friend called because you're having your period and you can't stand up? You know, fine. If it's an emergency, you won't care. You know, I will give any one of you, and you, sir, you stay seated. I will give any one of you the chance to stand up and come out here and we won't arrest you.
Yeah.
How about that?
Doesn't it just shock you though? Because like this country has like a long history of like somewhat legitimate and great protests throughout its history. There's been a few, but not one of those people who was, you know, getting hosed down by the police or chaining themselves to things, or even like, I don't agree with the guy, the Air Force, the airman who set himself on fire outside of the embassy, but at least you can't doubt his commitment to his cause, right? No. Like he wasn't dialing 911 for being very badly burned, you know?
Like, do you think there'd be a mural above her, you know, while she's on the phone with 911 of like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and, you know, girl. Just standing over like, you go, girl.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the spirit of me. This is exactly what I wanted you to do. This is the passive resistance that I was talking about. You called 911 and you talk about bloody tampons and you get your friend out of there so she doesn't get a mark on her record.
That was a very interesting turn of phrase there at the end of mark on her record.
Oh, yeah, John.
But here's one more example of people dialing 911 because they want to be bailed out of consequences. Let's suppose that the person inside actually, you know, is uncomfortable with a personal hygiene problem. And 911 is the solution to that, or it's a solution to a fake made up, 24-hour long non-protest that I'm sure all the professors and staff at Vanderbilt are just rolling their eyes about. Because they're the students are demanding an apology and all this, but it's more examples of people dialing 911 to be bailed out of their consequences. You mentioned Amanda Nenigar at the top of the show. Last week when we talked about Amanda Nenigar, she was missing in action. We presumed her dead at that point just because, from what I knew at the case of that time, that she was driving, that she got stuck, that she immediately dialed 911, wandered away from the vehicle, and somehow the phone got sent to the wrong PSAP or whatever. It turns out the case is actually way more stupid and fucked up than that. I'm not making fun of Amanda Nenigar for being dead, but she played a major role. In fact, if you wanted to charge anyone with Amanda Nenigar's murder, it would be her, because of how badly she handled her own emergency and then she expected 911 to save her from the emergency that she created and exacerbated. So we'll be covering that in greater detail next week. But just another example of
and another example of dogpiling, which I cannot stand. People who don't listen to the whole thing think they have the right to dogpile. And there are people like, if you look on YouTube, because like I was doing the research to pull the clip of the 911 call, and I listened to most of it, by the way, but I haven't got all the way through it. But if you listen to the most of the 911 call, you'll see, look, it's very, very sad that this young woman lost her life, that she didn't know where she was, and I'm sure she was terrified, and nobody wants anyone to go through that. And if there's any way a 911 dispatcher can help, they're going to help. And if there's any way a police officer or search and rescue team is going to help, they're going to help. We're going to go into great detail. We're going to lay out the case on both sides next week or whenever we do this. But most of the comments are anti-dispatcher, like, they failed you, pretty girl, or this 911 dispatcher didn't know what they were doing, or what do you mean? Like, she didn't know what she was doing, apparently, because, and here's a little sneak peek, John, it took her 48 hours to make the first 911 call. So she was in the desert for close to 2 days, according to her. So this is about young people and responsibility. And I didn't know we were going to be talking about this, period.
I like it. I don't know if a sound effect was just inserted there. Just examples of people not. First of all, neither one knows when to use 911. At Vanderbilt, should have never been called. You should never be dialing 911 for the express purpose of attempting to bully 911 dispatchers or to make the establishment look bad. In fact, I would wager that 911 call from Vanderbilt just made them look stupid. I hope the whole world sees it as that way. I know those nincompoops at Vanderbilt who apparently had to pass no actual tests to get into university anymore because they're just signing meal vouchers for Vanderbilt to get money from the U.S. Department of Education. It's all a scam. But also now you have a woman in the desert for 2 days and she doesn't dial 911 when a 911 call probably should have been placed within 15 minutes of her realizing she was on her own and unable to rescue herself. And I would have been fine with rescuing her and getting her out of that situation. And unfortunately, that's not what happened. But Drew, we have a case that we're going to break down.
Yeah, I can tell you one of my pet peeves in life, by the way, is when somebody says, like, you shouldn't even, John, you should know better than that. You shouldn't be doing that, period. Like, there's already, you know what I'm saying? There's already like punctuation for that. You don't ever say like, John, what are you doing? Question mark. Exclamation point.
Ellipsis.
Ellipsis. Okay, so there's that. So what we have is a call in Fort Lauderdale. It's several hours south of me. Lovely place Fort Lauderdale is. Miami area, but Fort Lauderdale has its own character. A lot of money there. And we're gonna go through it kind of frame by frame because there was a lot of gunplay in this one. So obviously I replaced most of the gunplay with lower volume and my voice. And I do that strictly for YouTube because YouTube is kind of funky about gunplay, as we've come to find out, and a little more on YouTube in a little bit. But here we go. So the source of this is Fort Lauderdale PD's YouTube page.
The shooting occurred inside a hotel in the 1500 block of Southeast 17th Street. The 46-year-old suspect from Margate, Florida, contacted 911 the morning of March 21st, claiming he had killed someone inside his hotel room.
Delta 30.
Good.
Member of an incident caller stating he has guns and will start shooting at whoever is at his front door, and also rambling stating his life is being. It's going to be the Holiday Inn Express, and caller states he sees a therapist and no additional.
Okay, so I broke this up a little bit because the original call on their website is not broken up. Like they just continuously played the radio traffic. We don't get to hear the 911 traffic, which would be interesting. I just didn't pull the 911 call from or search long and hard for it, but because we had this radio traffic, and this is very germane to what we have. But you hear what she relayed. What's your first reaction, John?
Well, first, that was distilled. You probably just heard probably 5 minutes of information all being broadcast back to back. It was all edited just so that you could understand the situation. A 911 dispatcher.
There's more radio traffic coming.
There'll be more, but I'm sure as it's coming out. I mean, there's a lot of detail that's coming out in this call. That's all going to be coming out. But the call takers on the line, the dispatchers sending units to the scene, and what you're going to hear is a bunch of information that's coming from a long, protracted phone call. And as it goes on, it gets more and more bizarre.
He's stating he has fully automated and 3 handguns with him, and he will shoot, and states he hears his wife struggling. She's being raped. Dump 30 units on me. They're 2 incidents. Just 314 caller stating he is not afraid to kill anyone.
All right. So that's pretty decent information, don't you think, John?
It is. For those of you who are listening, who are saying, that she's giving these incredible details of what may or may not be happening inside the hotel, and in kind of a non-excited tone. That's how we're supposed to sound. I've had newscasters and pundits and talking heads talk about how 911 dispatchers don't care based on the sound of their voice. Listen to her. She doesn't care about what's happening in there. 911 dispatchers got to be calm on the radio. She also really can't skirt around things like this. If we believe weapons are involved, we're pretty much going to dispense with being discreet on the radio. If we believe a sexual assault is in progress, when she says there's a woman inside being raped, it's important that we get that information across as succinctly and as directly as possible, so that there's no doubt about what's happening inside the hotel room based on the claims of the reporting party, which, by the way, even though she does sound a little bit circumspect about it, we have to treat it as though that's what's happening. Those are the stakes anyway, Drew.
Yeah, responding there is an issue. Like responding there is just kind of like not necessarily an issue. It's just like running through your mind. You're like, oh shit, like this is not going to be good. Like so I could tell you, as a patrol deputy responding there, I'm gearing myself up for like, okay, just be ready. This guy's got guns. He's probably going to shoot. You just we've got kind of time on our side as long as there's no other victim in there. But then the wrench gets thrown in there where he's so delusional that he thinks that his wife's being, sexually manipulated in there in some shape or form. I don't know if like a ghost is doing it or whatever. But so now we're all kind of wondering, shit, is there somebody else in the hotel room with him, or, what's going on in there? He's very clear about having guns. He's very clear about not being happy with anybody coming to the door, but he also called 911 for a reason. So now, we kind of have to be on extra guard, because is this an ambush, or is this him just telling us that he wants to die? You know what I mean? So all these things just kind of have to go through your mind. Like you need to gear yourself, like literally, like make sure you have the proper equipment on and everything's ready to go. You also have to get in the right frame of mind, and it probably wouldn't hurt to say a prayer or two, because you don't know how you're going to come out in this thing. Then, as a shift commander, I can tell you also the things that are running through my mind are like, man, we got to get in there. We already have enough to get into that room. We have the exigent circumstance of the lady, but somebody is armed in there, so we got to figure out who's going to get a key from the hotel. We got to figure out who's how we can establish communications if he cuts off with 911, preferably somebody in the hallway or somebody from the negotiations team if we're going to call somebody out. But let's get there and evaluate what we got first. And then just little things like we need to verify if somebody's in the room. We could do interviews with the clerk to see if they saw anybody coming and going. We could figure out which car he has to see what else he's got in there. And identify him, that kind of stuff. Check out his history, his criminal history, all these things that are going to be going on. If he had a felony warrant, that would be even kind of better, because now it kind of accelerates the the ability to get into that hotel room a little bit quicker. But you're up against somebody that's armed, so you don't know if you're going to call the tactical team at this point, if somebody's got shields, if somebody's got tools like a RAM or whatever, if we can't get a hold of a key or a swipe card or whatever. So here we go. Three different perspectives, patrol deputy, shift commander, and 911 operator.
10-4, and just so you know, it's 14 caller stating he sees the door moving now and is about to shoot, stating if he sees the door move, he will shoot.
That's unnerving. He sees the door moving, and if he sees the door move, he's going to shoot. And that pretty much says, okay, the minute we try to open the door, he's going to shoot. We just don't know for sure if he has a gun in there or not. He's only said that he has a gun.
Just so you know, it's 14 on 13 incident. Caller is speaking with someone in the background and is also rambling for the call taker who is still landline. No additional.
Okay. Rambling. Signs of incoherence.
Airman's 10-3, just so you know, it's 14 caller states he has a 9mm in his hand and another on the bed.
Okay, all of these little bits of information that they're coming at you quickly now because they were edited together by the agency, and then I kind of briefly separated them just so we could talk in between. But I'm sure that these are maybe a minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds apart, like different times apart, and all of this stuff just adds to the processing. Like you're flying at warp speed trying to get there. You're trying not to run people off the road, and at the same time, you're having to run people off the road. Because you're thinking of the safety of the person that may be in there and the other guests in that hotel. This could turn into an active shooter very quickly. This is a volatile situation. This guy's telling you he wants to harm people. He's telling you he's armed. All the indicators are there. So, all of this information, it's good that it trickles in because it just kind of adds to the stew, but the stew's already bubbling. Any observations, John?
On your preparation, you mentioned earlier checking history. If the guy's local in town, check 911 history to see if he's had a history of psychotic behavior, calls where he's threatening to harm himself, others, barricading himself, anything like that. If he's not from here, which is a distinct possibility since he's staying in a hotel, if you have the time, if this really turns into a protracted incident, you might try to figure out where he's from, talk to the people at the hotel, see if they've got his information on file from his payment or whatever. Maybe even contact a PSAP from wherever he's located. You might be able to get some good intel that way. With a situation like this and a female being inside, though, like I said, that really raises the stakes, and you have to act very quickly. You're going to want to be negotiating, establishing voice contact as soon as possible. These dispatchers, in a way, are already doing that, but they're saying that he's being not incoherent. He's not being helpful. And when she says no additional, what she's saying is that there's no more helpful information at this point. We're still talking to him. We haven't learned anything that helps the police at all. Drew.
So just something else to bear in mind. Just something to put on the list is that if the woman is in there, the encouraging thing is that he's more worried that somebody is hurting her. So it's like he has a protective stance over her, not necessarily a harmful stance over her. So
the dispatcher should say, send her out. We've got an ambulance outside ready to help her right now. If it's literally just the two of them and he seems to be in a protective stance, whether or not, she's really having something happen to her, if you can convince him to send her out, that's huge. I mean, whatever happens to this guy at this point, you got to remember he's the one that's starting it. So we want to preserve life whenever we can. But if she's in there, if she's barricaded inside the hotel, if she's a hostage or whatever, getting her out is huge. So if we can convince him to do that, that would be the main goal of talking to him on the phone.
In retrospect, I wish I had the 911 call because I guarantee that dispatcher did an amazing job. I guarantee it because of the information that she's drawing out of him anyway and giving to the radio dispatcher.
Officers responded to the caller's room on the 6th floor and attempted to make contact with the suspect. Second master.
Okay, so they're whispering. You can see in the top right, that's Officer D. Cristofalo. They're whispering, they're trying to get a game plan together, but that's the door on the immediate left, just to the right of the fire extinguisher there, is the room that they're going to. I think it's 624 or something like that. And they're trying to kind of get a game plan together. You can't really see it now. Hopefully you will in a second. There's, I think, 3 or 4 officers there. They've kind of like patched up, as we call it. Just they're side by side. One of them has a ballistic shield. This guy right here, D. Cristofalo, has his rifle out. I could tell by his the badging on his vest, because I've already seen this, that he's a SWAT guy. So he's tactically sound. He knows what he's doing here. And they're just going to try to get close enough to the door to make contact with this guy and see what they can see on the inside and see if they can draw him out.
It's please come out with your hands up. Come out with your hands up. Hands up, Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands.
Bang, 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 bang. Okay, so as I said in the beginning, I kind of changed the actual gunshots to the word bang so you can know. But that was pretty close to how many shots they fired right there. Bang, 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 bang. I think the suspect may have got a round off at that point, maybe 2. But we're going to watch the exact same clip, but slowed significantly. There's no audio in this, John, if you want to talk through it.
Now, Drew, we've probably evacuated the hotel, I'm sure, at this point. These rifle rounds are going to go through the walls and go through other rooms. They're standing down a hallway, so if they're having to shoot at the door or shoot through rooms, there's going to be rounds going into adjacent rooms. So I'm sure that they got everybody out of there, correct?
Yeah, hopefully. At a minimum, the room to the right, which, by the way, has a do not disturb sign on it. So, and I don't know this situation. Maybe this guy has both rooms. Maybe it's an adjoining room.
Maybe.
But here's so if you look, I have blown up the picture of D. Cristofalo's body cam, and the guy does open his door, and they can see in the room. They can also see very clearly that in his right hand, he's holding the gun. He's actually holding a gun in his hand. You can see it. And in a second, he levels it, which is what causes their response. So there is where he levels it. And for those watching, they understand. So this, we're going to pick up the video immediately after those rounds are fired. Like, we're talking about 1/100th of a second after those rounds are fired. I just wanted to slow the video down so you could see the guy with his gun. Bang, 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 bang. So I know you think that may be over exaggerated or sound like a broken record. That was accurate. That was exact. That wasn't the exact number of shots. The thing is, you have 3 officers there all shooting, and you have a guy on the other side of a door who let the door close, by the way, who's shooting out at them. So there's just gunfire going all over the place, to the point where you could see that if you look, John, like they shot the door frame off. But dude kept firing.
The sad thing is they don't really have a choice, right? Like, we have this whole time we're trying to operate under the idea that we're going to rescue someone that's inside with him. However, when he's firing at them, they don't have a choice left. They have to go tactical. A police officer isn't going to let other people in the hotel be risked being hit by his rounds, let alone another police officer themselves. Once shots are being fired, you have to return fire. We're hoping and praying that we're not going to strike the female that we believe is inside that room. But once the situation goes tactical, there's very rarely any coming back from that. We did talk about the case in Mesquite where I believe the kid ran out of rounds. He was packing a revolver that day, and he was up against 3 officers who were all carrying semi-automatic. So he ran out of rounds and was ready to talk again. We don't have any reason to believe that this guy's going to stop and talk.
Now, I'll tell you what I kept analyzing was, can you shoot through a closed door like that? And I mean, here's what I came to reason on. Like, obviously you're being shot at. You're in a very narrow hallway. My concern would be if there actually is somebody else in there, and you can't see what you're firing at, but you can't see through the door. You can see the direction the bullets are coming through the door, right? So they knew where he was.
Isn't he firing through the door? I mean, there's your target, right?
He is firing through the door, right? So, and this is what we called in the military, and I'm not even trying to make a joke here, but you can dead reckon that he is like right on the other side of that door, just with the gun pointed, and he's firing out. So, you know, just imagine silhouetting. I don't know the tactics of this. I don't know the procedures. Obviously, I know what they did, and I know that they were successful in what they did. But you know, shooting into a closed door. I mean, that also got one of those guys in the Breonna Taylor case indicted twice, by the way. So, but I'm definitely not questioning what these guys did. The circumstances are completely different because of the hallway they're in, and they're being fired upon, and there's a bunch of other stuff. So,
SWAT guys will train at hotels for this exact situation, decommission hotels, but that doesn't make it any easier. The whole situation they're in is one long fatal funnel, right? This guy, if he's able to lean out the door, he could see them coming, you know, they're all going to be lined up. They're going to be fish in a barrel for him to take out if he's shooting down the hallway. And by the same token, he has cover behind that door that he's shooting from. And it doesn't matter that he can't see the officers he's shooting. There's other people in that hotel. The risk of, because he doesn't care who he hits, right? The police have to be the police are the only ones that care, right? They want to hit the suspect. They don't want to hit this alleged female victim inside. They don't want to hit anyone else in the hotel. So they have to hit him with overwhelming force to stop the threat. It's the same thing as an active shooter in the mall. The only thing that's different is that he's got cover. Our tactics are different because of the layout of the situation we're in. But the only way to stop the threat is to overwhelmingly put him down right now and not let it go on.
And you're right. I mean, all he has to do is pop open that door, and he's got free access to 3 people. So Officer DiCristofalo very wisely kind of split off from the other 2. So now he has an angle from the right with his long gun, and the other 2 guys have a ballistic shield and a handgun on the left. I don't know if there's another rifle involved there. So at least the guy can't come out and wipe everybody out. You know, on the off chance that he's able to get outside of the room and start taking cops out. At least there's kind of like a fail safe. I mean, it's a horrible crossfire situation, but it's well done.
Go back. Get out. Get out.
So there is another rifle there. So in all of the confusion, I think somebody dropped like stuff out of their vest. Probably, though, it looks like to include the room key, like the card that they're using, like the master key. Here. So DiCristofalo says, "Hey, I'm hit. I'm hit pretty good."
Officer Jack DiCristofalo was among the group of officers who approached the hotel room door. Let's watch Officer DiCristofalo's video again in slow motion. The suspect opened the door with a phone in his left hand, a gun in his right. The suspect brings the gun down towards the officers, and Officer DiCristofalo, with his department-issued rifle, fires at the suspect. It is important to note our officers were acting on information that there could potentially be a victim inside the hotel room with the suspect. When officers continued to attempt to make entry, the suspect fired at the officers through the door. Officer DiCristofalo is struck at this point. Officers return fire and hold their position.
Now, the issue with the phone, I wanted to say what that reminded me of was jiggering. I don't know if you're aware of jiggering. It's what inmates do when they stand, when you're in a corridor of cells. They'll stand out there, they'll take their shaving mirror and hold it outside of the cell so that they can see what's going on down the tier. I'm wondering if he was using a camera app on his phone, holding that out at the edge of the threshold so that he could see the officers in the hallway and kind of get a heads up on how many there were, which direction they were coming from, what their tactic was, so that he could, swing around the threshold and fire off a shot. That's what my thought was. I have no idea if he's using that or not, or if he's just holding the phone out, but I just thought that was a tactical move he was doing.
That's what the Vegas shooter apparently did. He had some kind of CCTV situation set up. He was watching for when the officers got there.
Was
allegedly
initiated so that the officers could make entry into the room.
Okay, so what we may have missed, because he just said it quick, but they called actual SWAT to come do the entry. So they took those officers out of the fight basically, and they, the time was on their side at that point, I think. So
once entry was made, the suspect was discovered dead inside the room. No one else was inside the room.
Look at that. So that is DeCristofalo's vest. You can see it's a little bit heavier than a normal outer vest, right? So he's a tactical team guy. It even says SWAT on there. But if you look in the red circle, right where his flashlight is, he took at least one, it looks like 2 rounds.
Officer DeCristofalo was transported to the hospital where he was treated and released. You are looking at a picture of the bullet from the suspect lodged in his vest. The Fort Lauderdale Police Department is cooperating with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, who will lead the investigation into the officer-involved shooting.
So he would have taken round right to the gut. It would have been, if you look at that vest again, and I should have just saved a still of it, but his badge, like you'll see his actual badge, it's like a Velcro patch. Then just below it and to the right is his where his flashlight is, and just to the left side of that is where the rounds are lodged. So depending on the trajectory of the round, it could have gone up into his heart, but it was definitely hitting on the left side. So the guy was firing center mass, and he was less than 3 yards away from him. So thank God this didn't turn out very nasty for the police. Suspect, kind of sealed his own fate, I think. But
yeah, it's hard to cry for him. We talk about mental health problems. For all we know, that drugs were a part of it. It could have been 100 other things. But ultimately, we're glad that our officers, who have to respond to the problems that other people start, that they weren't injured or killed, I should say, in this incident. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the female was never there. Is that correct?
Right. The room was empty.
So all of this was, again, out of his imagination. It reminds me of that call. Do you remember the guy that we had barricaded inside the van at Home Depot? And he said that there was a girl with him or something. There was some kind of completely made up situation in his own mind.
Yes.
He said had to respond to him and
his
daughter. His daughter was missing or abducted, right? And that that whole thing was fabricated or whatever in order to draw the police into a confrontation. He gets out of the car or takes the gun out of his waistband or wherever it was. Very similar situation, only this is potentially more dangerous just with the orientation of the hallways. Of course, the Home Depot, you're out there in public and everybody's in danger out there. So a strange phenomenon. I'm not sure why people are dialing 911 and begging for this confrontation. It doesn't seem like it's a suicide by cop. Usually those people are a little bit more direct about it or transparent about it, or you can figure something else out. But who knows? I mean, it's not a one size fits all situation for suicide by cop, Drew.
Yeah, that kind of entered my mind too. Is this a suicide by cop? I mean, he answered the door with the phone in one hand and a gun in the other. I tend to think if this were suicide by cop, he wouldn't have the phone in his hand.
No, I also don't think he would have fired multiple rounds out through. I think he was seriously trying to kill the cops. A lot of suicide by cops, they're not actually, they're bereft of hope. They just want to die. They don't have the courage or the will or whatever it takes to do it to themselves, or they have a vision of how it should happen, but it's not actually about harming the cops. This guy clearly did want to harm them.
I have a show planned in the hip pocket that illustrates that perfectly. It wasn't, he kept saying that he was armed, but he was not armed.
Subject precipitated suicide is something that's massively on the rise, and it's something hostage negotiators are having to learn how to deal with differently. And if this was one of those, it just adds a tally of cases like that. But this was an interesting one. I'm glad that all the cops are okay though, Drew.
Yeah, I am too. It's
feel bad for Holiday Inn. I mean,
I don't know if that room is at a reduced rate. I do wonder what happens, to that. Like
I could tell you, I stayed in a hotel room once in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I got there and I went into the room, and then you close the door and like there's no threshold there because the warrant division's already been there. They don't care. They'll just rent it on out. I went down and normally hotels are not very good about issuing refunds and just letting you leave. And they want to compensate you with getting a different room or whatever, or it's not refundable or whatever, or talk to Expedia, is usually the result. But I explained it like, listen, this is not your fault, night clerk, but I want my money and I want to leave, because of the situation there. We don't feel safe here. There's nothing you could do. Nothing against you. I'm going to tell your manager you did a great job. But once the police have been there, you could tell. I would love to stay in a room that had clearly been shot to shit, just because it would be an interesting experience. If I'm by myself, if I'm staying with a loved one, obviously I'm not going to subject them to that.
Yeah, hotels are very common places for people to go commit suicide. By the way.
I know. Yeah. Well, when you go to a hotel, you're normally thinking of you're wondering how many people have had sex here, how many naked people have been in your bed, whether or not they're really as scrupulous as you think on doing
how many accidents. Yeah.
How many kids have peed the bed, right. Things like that. You're wondering all this, but you never think about the guy who overdoses on Valium or laudanum or whatever, or pills. Whatever, and he was or just a guy that ran a marathon and his heart exploded and he laid in bed for 3 days. You just never...
like Bob Saget or Chris Cornell. You know what I mean? Like they were in hotels.
Every singer I like is dead except for Aaron Lewis. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Oh, you just jinxed it. Dude.
Oh man, thoughts and prayers for Aaron Lewis. Please don't do it. Please call 911. Call 9888. You seem to be doing better, but just don't do it, man.
So we are inching closer, John, to our requisite hours on YouTube. We need the.
Do you want me to play the voicemail?
We do have a voicemail, but we need the complainants help with some of the watch hours. Like we need 3,000 watch hours to get us to a status where we can accept super chats and memberships that we'll consider doing and stuff like that. And then so we need 3,000 watch hours and we're at 2,250 as of the end of March, which is phenomenal. I cannot thank all of you enough for getting us to that point in a very short 4 months. You people are amazing. Well, I mean, 3.5 months when you think about it. So you people are amazing. Then if we go to 4,000, we start, that's when we hit the big money. That's when YouTube pays us the tens and the $15 per month for the ad watch revenue.
That's going to McDonald's money, maybe.
That is right. So we will get Dewey paid if we get up to 4,000 watch hours. You two will be at the sitting at the Supercuts in your chair built for two on YouTube. At some point,
we should absolutely do something. Once we start getting memberships or something, we'll drop some sort of bonus content. But Dewey's the first person that needs to get paid. Before the show, he goes yeah, I'm currently editing 6 videos of yours. And I'm just my God, man, this is, he's the most devout slave laborer I've ever encountered. I just wanted to say thank you to Dewey on the air. You have no idea how hard he's working to improve the show and resurrect assets for the show and make it as presentable to you as possible. So my thanks to our producer Dewey on the air.
My thanks also. The place looks amazing. If you look around our YouTube page, it looks nothing like other ones I was associated with. This
or ones that I currently run.
I don't know about that, but this looks professional. I think I'm blocked from one of them. So just
I tried to block you for your own good.
Right. Thank you. You were protecting me. Look, just help us out. Share us with your Aunt Sally, and tell her to share us with her Aunt Sally. And
or just put your computer on and switch autoplay on and just hit an entire playlist. Just let it go.
I'm definitely not telling you to go to the Best Buy and get every Apple device and open YouTube and subscribe all of those Apple devices.
Turn on your tablet, play it
Yeah.
for your babies, play it for your dogs while you're away at work. Just let it
Your
run.
cats. Play it for Dewey's cats. Play it for your cats.
Ours is ours, baby. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, ours is ours. That was my motto in high school.
It was
John,
back
do you
when watch hours were a huge thing in the 80s. Exactly.
Yeah, ours is ours.
Let's play the voicemail if you're ready. Oh, he's drinking liquid and giving me a thumbs up. Here we go.
I heard nobody's wanting to call you guys and leave a voicemail for the regular show, so here you go. Here's a nice little voicemail for the regular show that you can play or not. Doesn't bother me at all. The bees are coming.
Solemn warning there at the end. Spring is coming. The bees are returning. In fact, I've been promising this for a few weeks that the story of bees versus California Highway Patrol will be the lead story. I just keep forgetting that which should not belie how important and terrifying the story is of the bees return, the onslaught of brainless, murderous tyranny. Bees massively outnumber us, and their sole purpose in life, their brainless lives, is to cause the suffering of man. And they are of course returning from those dark places where they go during the winter to watch mankind and scheme their return. So that return is imminent. Be on the lookout for bees. Do not believe the bullshit lies how they're essential to our ecology. All species of bee are invasive. All bees wish you harm, even those cute little bumblebees. That is camouflage. They will thrive on your indulgence and your understanding. And if a bee could swap places with you, it would think nothing of stamping out your existence. In fact, that is what they're trying to do. So, yes, the bees.
Not the bees!
After show coming up next. If you want to drop in and talk to me, I usually try to formulate a plan about what will loosely be on the after show. But what's always going to take first place is asking and answering 911. If you have questions about 911, how it works, if you've come across something, if you've had a 911 experience you want to share, if you want to ask me about it, if you want to complain, I'll take some kind of complaints. I'm usually very, very, very tired Thursday night, but just bear that in mind. And the show goes on for as long as people are interacting with me. So we thank you for engaging with me on the after show.
Stupid Questions with John.
Stupid Questions with John coming up next. Again, if you want to reach out to us, you can do so on Instagram. Reach Drew at What Say Drew. Or you can reach us at the Comm Center, or me at Difficult to Look at Pictures if you feel like doing that. You can also email us at commcenterpodcast@gmail.com. That's commcenterpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for hitting like and subscribe on this YouTube video. If you like this video or if you have a problem with us, please leave an outraged comment in the comment field below. We will respond to all comments because we realize that it is a way to grow the channel. Also, we care about what you think. And make sure you're listening on Spotify, iTunes. Leave a 5-star rating and review. We do have a contest currently in progress that no one but me is taking seriously. Leave a review on Apple. We know that most podcast listeners are on Apple. We know that for a fact. We have the data. It's not confusing, Drew. If you're on Apple, leave a 5-star rating and review between now and draft day. We will pick out whoever leaves the best one or whoever leaves the only one. And I'm going to send you, with your permission, some kind of box of something, whether that's drawings, artwork, memorabilia from the Comm Center, stuff that has the wrong brand on it from the network. We'll send that stuff to you just to kind of get it out of clearinghouse. I've got an autographed drawing of Drew. I've also got several discreet or candid photos of Drew that he doesn't know about that I'm willing to print out and send to you. I don't know what that would do for you, but I'll find some way to make that worth your while. And it's because I want to see us grow on Apple. So please leave a 5-star rating and review. Drop as many references to the history of Comm Center in there as possible. Is a good way to make us laugh. If you want to be talking about how you tried to leave a rating and review and it didn't work, that's obviously just going to make us laugh because things tend not to work out around here, Drew. Other than that, I guess I'm good for the week. I'm good to go. Is the show over now?
I think the show's over. Don't ever discount Rumble either. I mean, I know that I gave a whole soliloquy on YouTube, but look, if you're a Rumble person, stick with it. Tell your Aunt Sally's Uncle Tom about Rumble, and don't forget Hard Time. That's John's.
I have another show, whole other show. Partially monetized at this point. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.